Dr. Sabrina, how are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic, Ryan. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
I know I am too. For the listeners I was actually just on Dr. Sabrina's podcast. So we are flipping the quote unquote table or the wire or the internet cord or whatever we want to call it.
The mic.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And I'm so excited because, first of all, you got introduced to me by a dear friend, Rob Dubay, who anybody that he refers me to is just automatically just like, you have fulfilled everything that I thought, from the conversations that I had with Rob. And I want you to, if you want to just kind of give a little bit of your background, Dr. Sabrina, you're an author, an entrepreneur, and you've got an interesting career path that kind of led you to what you're doing today.
Sure. So I've been working with business owners, coaching them for 17 years. I started out as a psychologist by training, and I worked in a community mental health center and got very burnt out. And I was looking for how can I repurpose my skills as a psychologist and use them to help people live happy, healthy lives versus overcoming depression and anxiety and severe mental issues. And I decided that I would pursue life coaching. I hung out my shingle, so to speak, in rural Wyoming. So I was in Riverton, Wyoming, and it really is true what they say about Wyoming. There are more antelope than people. And I went to the Chamber of Commerce president to get some help with just getting my business off the ground. And when I told her what I was doing, and she said, "You're going to open a life coaching business in Wyoming. This is good. Good luck to you." And so I knew I had some challenges ahead of me. And what was really interesting is I had a lot of business owners seeking me out, and they wanted support and help around work-life balance. And I thought, well, great, I can absolutely do that. That's right up my alley. But as I started digging in with them, I realized they don't have a work-life balance problem. It wasn't that they were overworking and they needed someone to tell them to take a vacation, because they all would love to take a vacation,
right.
But it was employee challenges. And they were, because we were in a small town in a rural area, they were really in this mindset that I just have to keep the team members that I have. I have to make do with what I have because we're in a small town, rural area. Scarcity, all the scarcity mentality. And I kept hearing, it's just the way it is. And I would tell them, you're never going to get better team members if you keep these other team members around because they're warm bodies. Mm-hmm. And it's like spraying A player repellent all over your business. No one wants to work with a bunch of warm bodies if you're an A player because you're cleaning up all their messes all the time. Mm-hmm. And then they would just come back and say, "No, you don't understand, Dr. Sabrina. It's just the way it is here." And so one morning I just woke up, and have you ever had that experience where when you're transitioning from sleep to wakefulness, sometimes a big problem that you've been grappling with, all of a sudden the answer is there?
the actual light bulb, right?
Yeah, like the light bulb goes off. Well, I didn't have that happen. Instead, I had this question running through my head of, what if it's not true? What if it's not true that because we're in a small town, rural area, and we're small business owners, we just have to make do? And that really put me on a quest. And I got really curious. I thought, can I find small business owners who are hiring A players, who have great people on their team? And maybe they'll talk to me and maybe they'll tell me what they're doing. And then I could teach that to my clients. So I set out to do these interviews and find these business owners. So first off, I couldn't find any, because if you ask a business owner, do you have a team of A players? No one has a team of 100% A players. So right off the bat, they were like, "No, that's not me." Mm-hmm. And so then I changed my question. I said, "Do you have a few A players on your team?" And that is when they said, "Well, yes, I do." And I said, "Well, I'd love to interview you. I'm researching this." And they said, "You know what? No, because I don't know how I got them." And I said, "What do you mean you don't know how you got them?" And because they're on your team. And they said, "If I had to do it again and get more, I don't know where to start because it's just random that they're on my team." And I thought, okay, no, wait a minute. Just tell me the story of how these A players came to work for you. And that's how I finally got small business owners to talk to me. As I said, just tell me the story. And I started gathering these stories. And I remember one evening in my living room, I had different stories laid out, and I was just trying to block them together with themes. And I started noticing, oh my gosh, there's a lot of patterns here. There's a lot of common themes. And whenever there's pattern and themes, there's a system. And that's what was the beginning of the first How to Hire the Best book, which I wrote specifically for rural business owners. It's the Rural Business Owner's Ultimate Guide to Attracting Top Performing Employees. It was a little bitty book. It was the best of what I knew at the time. It's the foundation of what I teach now, but it was itty bitty. And I put it out there, and I started getting phone calls from business owners, New York, New Jersey, San Francisco. Oh, wow. And they said, I'm not a rural business owner. I read your book. Would you be able to help me? And I said, I have no idea. I don't know if this works in a larger area. It works in Riverton, Wyoming, and it works, in other rural areas, but I don't know. And so I said, but let's try it out. And sure enough, if it works in a rural area, it works exponentially better in more populated areas just because there's more people to choose from. And so that was the beginning of the How to Hire the Best series. And I always joke, I say, I never set out to write a book on hiring. I never wanted to be a small business hiring expert. What I really wanted to do is help business owners take their lives back from their businesses. And because I saw all these overworked business owners, and they are the rocks, they're the pillars in their community, they're pillars on their team, and they're overworked, they're burning out, and they don't have solutions for how to take their life back from their business. Mm-hmm. And so the book that I recently published, The 4-Week Vacation, that is my life's work. That's what I've always wanted to do. And the 4-Week Vacation is the entrepreneur's ultimate guide to taking your life back from your business. It hinges on having A players on your team, because if you don't know how to hire great team members, you're always going to be in a place where you don't trust your team, and you overwork, you overfunction in the business. And so what's interesting to me is I've been doing some research recently with our Better Business, Better Life assessment. 9 out of 10 small business owners have no system for hiring in their business, but the ones who have a high quality of life have that system. So I'm convinced that's the turning point for business owners when they learn how to hire A players, where things really start to shift.
That last comment, I think, is where we're going to unpack this, because I think when I found very fascinating when you and I have had these calls off the record is you and I both, it appears to be like, it's like the system's the theme. Like, what's the one thing that's going to, make everything else work easier? And so what you're saying is, like, after all those themes, when you had them all kind of mapped out, it was the people that kind of set things into order. Is there, like, the one thing that exponentially had.
Yes.
It's like, you remember that one book, The One Thing or whatever?
The one thing.
Yeah, the one thing that's going to make everything else easier.
Yes. So to put this in language you use, solve for the people problems in your business. And that's where things start to shift.
So let's talk about like maybe some definitions, set the context. I love this topic because I've had very, very good successful stories and a lot of not successful of my own personal experience. When I was reading, I was like, yep, definitely guilty of that. Well, like you had mentioned warm bodies and A players. What is your definition of both of those?
Okay, so let's start with an A player. An A player is a highly motivated go-getter. They will go around, over, and through problems. They don't just encounter a problem or a challenge and throw up their hands and say, oh, I don't know what to do here. They are the rocks on the team, the people that you can count on. And what's interesting about A players is they are intrinsically motivated. Their motivation comes from within. And because it comes from within, you don't have to motivate them with bonuses and raises to get a higher level of performance out of them. They are lifelong learners. They want to grow and improve. And what is gratifying to them is to be better tomorrow than they were today and the day previously. And so when you want to hire A players, you need to provide an environment that supports their desire to grow and get better. And if you're not providing that, they're not going to want to be in your business. Your warm bodies, on the other hand, are your disengaged team members, and they're really there. They're punching the clock. They're gathering a paycheck. They are not going above and beyond. Like right now, the term is quiet quitting.
I know, I saw that.
That's it. It's being present, but doing nothing more. And reality is the majority of small businesses and large businesses are filled with team members who are doing about 40% of the work that you want them to be doing in a given week. So you pay them for 5 days, you're getting about 2 days worth of work from them, which small businesses for a business to be profitable, you cannot afford to
right.
have these disengaged team members.
Yeah, maybe
in your
3M
business.
or Pfizer or something like that.
Yeah.
But not the person with 10 employees.
They can't either. They think they can, but they could be way more profitable if they figured this out.
Agreed. Touche.
Yeah. Yeah. So these warm bodies, the key difference between an A player and a warm body is an A player is going to be about 900 to 1,200% more productive than a warm body team member.
Say those percentages again.
An A player will be 900 to 1,200% more productive than a warm body team member. But there's a caveat to this. And so I need to clarify that you can't just hire an A player and expect that they're going to take off and be that much more productive. You need to hire them into a role where there's a clearly defined result that's measurable. And that result needs to align with their strengths. So the key question that I put to business owners is, if this team member that you hire can only get one thing done, the one thing that they can do for you in a given day or a given week, what is the one thing that's most important for them to do? And the business owner, you need to be able to tie that to the sweet spot of the business and the profitability. If there's any disconnect there, they're not going to be profitable on your payroll for you. And so you get clear on that one result that you need them to deliver day in and day out. And then you hire team members who have the strengths to deliver that one result day in and day out. And so when we work from our strengths, we are incredibly productive. It gives us energy. It doesn't drain our energy. So that's why you get this 900 to 1,200% increase in productivity, because these A players, it's not that they're overworking. They're working from their strengths, and that gives them drive and energy.
And they're intrinsically motivated. I like that.
Yes.
That right there. I've had so many employees, and I've been very, and it's been a long time since I've been an employee, but like I've seen myself in different ones, but like intrinsically motivated people are like so obvious to compare to the contrasting person that needs direction. What is there like what percentage of the population are actually intrinsically motivated like that? Well, is everybody capable of it, or?
So I don't know. That's a great question. What percentage is intrinsically motivated? I do know that only about 10% of the population are A players, which is why it makes it so challenging to find them, because not even over that 10%, they are not all working. The ones who are A players are employed elsewhere because they're A players. And so this is what we really need to wrap our heads around, is putting an ad together and posting it on Indeed. There's a good chance the A player that you want on your team is never going to see that ad because they're working. They're not looking for work. And so we have to really shift how we go about attracting them to our business and getting in front of them so that they know about the opportunity to work for us. And we have to become employers of choice for the A players we want to attract to our team, which means we got to do the work ourselves and our culture, because A players aren't going to want to come if you're just posting ads and you expect them to come to your business and do a role for you.
So then everybody listening is probably going, well, how? So they're not posting, they're not looking at jobs. Is it through a recruiter? Is it like, what are the ways to find these people?
So I would caution against recruiters. The reason I caution about recruiters is recruiting is a numbers game, and it's a sales type of role. So they're getting paid off of filling your seat in your business. They're not putting the attention to the cultural fit, and they really rely on you to be doing that. And so, but what I teach in How to Hire the Best is you want to set your A player attraction system up from the get-go to attract the right people. You don't want to be talking to a bunch of the wrong people at the interview stage, because you don't have time for that. It's so time consuming to interview.
Oh my God. I interviewed 100 CFOs last year.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
And you're still standing.
I know. And that's not my strong suit either. I mean, like, yes, I like, anyways, I won't digress.
So you want to attract the right people, and you want to screen out the wrong people, so that by the time you get to the interview phase, you have 5 or 10 at the most that you're interviewing. Not hundreds. And so that's why I say recruiters, you have to be careful with that, because they are setting you up to be overwhelmed like that in what they're doing, and you may not hire someone who's a good fit. So you want to think through, all right, so this is the result that I need. This is the type of person who's going to have these particular strengths. And so you create a profile, really like your ideal team member, just like you do in marketing when you want to attract clients and customers, you create an avatar. So this is an avatar of your ideal team member for this particular role. You also need to get very clear on your own immutable laws. These are your core values. Your immutable laws are the seeds of the culture in your business. They are what make you unique and different. And so as you think about your ideal team member, they're going to hold your core values, your immutable laws, and they're going to have certain personality strengths. And you're writing all this up and you're coming up with a description, not of a job ad, but of a person that you want to attract.
How about that? It's a person.
It's a person. It's a real person. And then you get to think about, well, where would I find these people? Where are they going to hang out? And that is the key to unlocking your steady stream of A players that you want to attract to your business. A players hang together.
Can I pause you for a second? Because I want to go back to where they hang out and how we find them. But just a question where I think about, I've done both orders of what I'm about to ask. Is like, do you suggest taking like the accountability chart, like EOS, and saying, okay, here are the functions.
Yeah.
And then because a person's face could be on multiple functions, right? Because it's a typical org chart. Or I've heard many other, again, I've done both order, or you find like you actually are out and you're like, holy shit, this person's amazing.
Yeah.
And then like you're like, that person's a Swiss Army knife. They could do all these things. So they're solving, they're doing the inverse where they're taking that A player and they're manipulating their function chart for the A player. Does that make sense? The question?
So I'm going to be realistic and just tell you what goes on in the real world. You got to do what you got to do so that you, the business owner, are doing less. And so if you find that Swiss Army knife,
music to everybody's ear.
Yeah. And so if you find that Swiss Army knife out there in the world and you bring them in and you plug them in to do 10 things on that chart, because we know, there's a lot of holes that need to be filled in these small businesses, you really risk diluting their strengths and their capabilities. And so, yes, at Tap the Potential and in most small businesses, we have A players who are filling multiple roles on our accountability chart. However, we are always putting an eye to what is your strength and which role, if you could pick only one role on this accountability chart to fully hold that seat, which role would it be? And we strive to move them in. So we think about our next hires based on which A player is stretched where they want to go and free them up. We sweep off the other responsibilities that are not their strengths. And we have to remember about A players because we're good at so many things. We are those Swiss Army knives that we will get a lot of things on our plates that wear us out. And we do them and we do them well and we'll do them without complaint, but they are not our strength. And so they drain our energy at the end of the day. And so it's very dangerous to keep your A players overextended for too long.
Thank you. That was awesome because I've always struggled because you're right. It's like, well, ideally you have your function chart first and then you're like, and blow that all through. Oh my God, please. And I'm just thinking about Powerhowski and Stashi, two of my amazing A players who are still dear friends at this point. I'm like, they'll do whatever, but I'm like, I will solve everything for you. But I love how you worded that because, our team ends up having the mechanical financial path underneath that. And it's like, you can truly tie that progression into a way that makes sense to lift someone from a $2 million company to a 5, because that A player can actually get you over that versus all the warm bodies. Super fascinating. So going back to how you're finding these people, where they're hanging out, how do you figure out where they're hanging out?
Well, they hang together. So they network, they tend to know each other. And so you always start with your own personal networks because you're an A player. Business owners are always the chief A player on the team. You have networks where there's other A players. And it's really a matter of just getting the word out on the street and doing basic networking. So open your mouth and say, I'm looking for someone who is, describe the person you're looking for, the strengths and some of the values. And don't say, who do you know who's looking for work? Never. That should never come out of your mouth, because A players are always employed elsewhere. So you have immediately, in the other person's mind, you've got them thinking about their loser friends that they don't ever want to refer to anybody.
Would you like to waste a bunch of your own time? Just go like interview all of my D- friends.
Right. And so if you just say, here's who I'm looking for, this is the kind of person, who do you know who comes to mind? And then would you mind connecting me with them? And you want to start the conversation. It doesn't mean that those individuals are going to come work for you right away, because they're employed elsewhere. So you want to stay in touch with them. You want to build reasons to stay in contact. And one day you're going to reach out to them and say, hey, I was thinking about you today. I read this really cool article on LinkedIn. I wanted to share it with you because it reminded me of something you said. And you know what? That day is the day their boss was mean to them, or, yelled at them, cussed them out. Who knows? It's their bad day on the job. And now they know about you. They know about the opportunity to work for you. And if you've been using the How to Hire the Best system, you've been featuring your team in social media. You've been talking about all the wonderful things, the team development that you do with people and the leadership, and how people have advanced in your company. So they have a really good feeling about you as an employer of choice, and they're going to be ready to hear your offer.
Super awesome. And let's talk about like getting the word out. Like you kind of alluded to a handful of examples of how to become the employer of choice and how to become visible.
Yes.
Like how do people know that you're the employer of choice? So like what are ways to become visible?
Yeah. So you have to start, this is all internal work. You can't just make say, I'm going to be an employer of choice. Like it just happens.
Best place to work. Yes.
Yeah. Right. But that's not how it works. It's not real. So to really do this from a genuine way, go talk to your A players on your team currently and ask them why they love working for you. And then you're going to get their real perspective on what they appreciate most about the opportunity to work for you. And you'll be surprised. I hear the simplest things, Ryan. They treat me with respect. We're like family here. I had to take time off to go to my mother's doctor's appointment, and they let me do it. It's those simple things. And we take that for granted. We think this is no big deal. We think we have to come up with these amazing perks and give huge pay rate, salaries and wages that we can't afford. And it comes down to, it's the little things. And so that's why I say you have to go talk to your A players and find out what these little things are, because then you want to be more vocal about them. You want to quit being the best kept secret, and you want to start getting that word out there. And so getting your team members who are happy to write testimonials or go on video and talk about why they love working for you and what's unique about the culture. And then the other really cool thing, this is a ninja tactic, is to ask your A players to describe a great place to work for you.
That's awesome. I love it.
Right?
Don't describe Icona. Why don't you just go ahead and tell the best place to work? It's like,
yes. Tell me about the best place to work, and what they're telling you is what they want.
I love
and
it.
Now you have a vision to work towards. You have something that you can aim. And so the other part of this ninja tactic is to ask them, if you were talking to a friend, how would you describe Arcona as a place to work? So you ask that question, then you ask a few other questions in between, and then you say, now describe a great place to work. And you want to listen for how close what they said about Arcona is to their friend versus how they describe a great place to work. If there's a lot of alignment, you're golden. Like you're doing all the things, and you just need to be more visible with those things. But if there's discrepancy, just work on the discrepancies until you're moving the business into the place where it is a great place to work.
Yeah, Dr. Sabrina, I absolutely love it, because, the amount of fuzzy answers I've heard about culture over the years is just mind-boggling, right? Like, and what you just described is essentially just culture too, because it's how human beings interact together. So like, we didn't even talk about culture, but you just described about a place to work with human beings that have to wake up and go to work every day. And it's like, it's so fascinating, because like I've even watched as my wife has had two gigs now over the last 36 months. So she was home with our kids for almost 3 years, went back to the workforce, was there for 2 years, and so I watched her actually search for a job for like over a year, and how miserable that was. And I would consider my wife an A player, 100%. I would love to have her sit next to me working side by side, but like watching how difficult it was for her. I mean, she was finding D employers left and right, and they wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, so this mismatch, but it was so fascinating when you mentioned just acknowledging that we're people.
Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing, but like, it's really that true. Like, hey, by the way, you two have 6-year-olds and you're gonna have to go to conferences. So let's just admit it.
Right.
You're
right.
like, weird, right? I mean, it's just so crazy.
Yeah. And these things make your team members so loyal because they're so appreciative that they have the ability to be there for their families. We encourage people to take time off at Tap the Potential because I know that they need a break. And, you know, I've been told in the last 2 months by multiple team members, it is so weird for your boss to tell you to go take a vacation. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, Dr. Sabrina, but it's true. And the other side of that is when we allow our employees to have lives away from the business, they are richer human beings and they bring more of themselves to work. If we have employees that we overwork and, you know, they're putting in 60 hours and we don't give them time off for their families, they're coming in as a shell of their being. And so
and working, doing the 2 hours, like you were saying, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah, which it's so, you know, a couple things I'm validating what you're saying is that the book Drive by Daniel Pink, I read like, I don't know, 10 plus years ago. And he was talking about the mental space and like Gmail was created in like some dude's head in the shower during his like 20% free time. Yeah. And it's because they're thinking about it because they're excited about it, right?
Yes.
It's not versus like completely ignoring everything except 2 hours a day when you're writing some emails.
Right. Right. And I have a team member who will send me a Voxer on a Saturday and she's like, I just had this really great idea. And I couldn't wait till Monday, you know? And so, but that's it. And, you know, I tell my team, take the weekends off. You're not expected to work. And if somebody sends you a Voxer or a Slack message, they're not going to get a response necessarily until Monday because everyone needs that headspace. But at the same time, if somebody has a great idea because they've had that headspace, you know, absolutely put it out there. That's a wonderful
That's awesome.
thing.
So you, when you're talking about putting the visibility out of being an employer for choice and highlighting these things that we're talking about, there was someone I interviewed. His name is Jason. He wrote the Z Economy. It was a lot about Gen Z, and that's his profession, is interview or his research on Gen Z. But I was like, this is like, you're just talking about humans.
Yes.
And one of the interesting strategies why this relates is he was talking about how to legitimately advertise to the employees that you want. So is that like kind of what you're talking? I mean, like, it's not just we're hiring page that's all stale and like, you know, I see your face is great.
No, it's everything that we know about marketing and we need to use it to attract our A players to our team. So yes, you want to have a marketing campaign. In my How to Hire the Best course, we just kicked it off 2 weeks ago. I have a client in there who's got his marketing person and one of his key team members in there. And we were talking about how do you build a funnel to attract A players to the team. And so everything that we know to attract clients and customers to our businesses, we can do it to attract those A players to our teams. But we just have to have that clear avatar first and work on our culture in our company. And then we're going to be much more attractive to those A players.
Before we continue, I want to make sure that I'm saying this out loud so that way I don't forget it, is that we talk about how to like interact and manage A players and how they deal with like as once they're in the company. But before we get to the in the company, this is where our work intersects, where you talk about how do we afford these people. Yeah. Because I think that's, you know, people probably been listening like, of course, I know Dr. Sabrina and Ryan, like I love A players, but I can't afford XYZ salary. So like, I know you've got some very, very simple, very effective ideas on that.
Okay. So you have to understand at Tap the Potential, we teach the Tap the Potential solution, which is designed to create a sustainably profitable business that gives you more time for what matters most and more money in your bank account. The first step is implementing Profit First. And one of the things about Profit First is you have clear percentages that are target percentages that you should have for profit and owners pay. And in my years of helping business owners with Profit First, I've seen them really struggle to hit their owners pay and profit percentages because operating expenses are so high. Payroll is the biggest expense in a company outside of rent typically. And if we can reduce payroll, then you have a greater opportunity to be more profitable. So in the Tap the Potential solution, all the steps that follow after Profit First are designed to help you be more profitable and make you have more time. So the next step is to niche down with a clearly defined sweet spot in your business. When you have this clearly defined sweet spot, you're no longer serving all the different people and making sales willy-nilly. You're being very targeted and focused. That allows you, there's a mind-blowing concept here. If you recognize the 80-20 principle at work in your business, you have 20% of your clients and customers responsible for 80% of the revenue. That means that 80% of your clients and customers are responsible for 20% of the revenue. That 80% of your clients and customers who are responsible for the 20% of your revenue are usually your PITA clients. They're the difficult ones. They want the cheapest of what you have to offer. They're going to complain. They're going to need a lot of extra hand-holding, whatever, and they take up a lot of team time. So most businesses, without a clear sweet spot, will hire people to take care of the PITA clients and customers.
Just define PITA, because
pain in the assets.
I love it. Yes.
So they are, because they take up so much time, you go hiring team members to take care of them, which is a setup for all kinds of problems. Because if you have A players taking care of your worst clients and customers, they are not going to stay around. They're going to be frustrated because it's a crappy job at that point. So the simple thing to do is to look at, if I were to be at choice to drop 80% of my clients and customers, what do I need to do to replace that revenue? Well, all you need to do is increase the revenue you receive from your top clients and customers by 25%. Because that replaces that 20% that the 80% of your clients and customers are responsible for. So when you have fewer clients and customers, you have more time to get to know your best clients and customers and serve them better and better. At Tap the Potential, we say we serve the heck out of our clients and customers because we have a small number. We are not trying to serve hundreds and hundreds. We work with a small number at any given time so we can give them our best. And that allows us to add a lot of value. And this is the same in any business. You'll be able to add more value, which allows you to charge more and gets you away from price competition. And that allows you to be able to pay your A players more and offer benefits and offer training and development. But the beauty in all this is because A players are 900 to 1,200% more productive than warm bodies. You don't need as many team members when you have A players. So that again creates more margin and more opportunity to pay them more and allows you to be profitable.
I love it so much because it's a practical, this is why I think you and I, our brains think alike, because it was like, you have to have an order of things to get to the point where you can hire them. How many, this is the one that there's some, I love EOS, but there's some cracks in it. We're like, how many implementers I've heard go, just go hire an integrator. I'm like, they can't afford a $200,000 integrator, so shut it.
It's an expensive role.
It's the same thing as like, I need to be healthier. Well, eat less and work out. Well, duh. Everybody knows these things. But what you did is you set practical, like, hey, if you do this, you can actually make more money. You can pay yourself. Because like, that's that hamster wheel that I've always like, I've never been able to clearly articulate it like you, Dr. Sabrina, but I've always said, like, I know for a fact when I hired Paul Rahowski, all the shit was better. Like everything got better. And then I was like, oh, relativity compared to everybody else. So I accidentally figured it out. But we had a big enough company where it was possible to do that. I mean, it was a narrative we had to burst through. But, you know, when you're trying to scale up, there was a gentleman, I think his name is Scott Fritz, I think it's the 40-hour work year or something like that. But he was saying that second person is like that domino, like the book, The Goal. It just like makes everything else easier. And so all of that is this affirmation towards you that's saying like you gave a practical way to actually make it happen instead of just telling everybody what they are.
Right. Yeah. That's why I developed the Tap the Potential solution, because I've been coaching these business owners over the years, and it's always like the chicken or the egg. Which do you do first? And, you know, some people try it this way and some people try it that way. And one of my hack is whenever someone would come to a coaching session, I would ask them what are their wins and successes from the week. And I pay attention because anything that's a win or success, you want to repeat it. You want to intentionally do more of what's working. And so I've been paying attention to the wins and successes all these years and looking at when people are freed up, when they're having more time for what matters most and they're more profitable, what are they doing? And so that's how I created the Tap the Potential solution. But what I'm totally stoked about is we've been using our Better Business, Better Life assessment now, and it's the only assessment that looks at the well-being of the entrepreneur in relation to the health of the business. There's no other assessment out there that does that. And so we have data now that shows what entrepreneurs who are thriving, living a high quality of life, what they're doing differently than 90% of other entrepreneurs. And
I'm salivating wanting that data.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, there are a couple of key findings. Number one, the business owners who have a high quality of life are taking more time off, fully unplugged from their business. And so you're probably thinking, well, that's great, but it's just like what I said, Sabrina, I can't just go take time off because everything hinges on me. What do I do? So the other thing that's going on is they have double the number of systems in place in their business as those who are burning out and struggling. So, continue adding your systems. But the way my mind works is that's great to know, add systems, but which systems? I want to know which ones are going to have the greatest impact because I'm busy and I don't have time to do it all. So where should I focus? Hire the best system, having a system to attract top quality clients and customers and weed out poor or distracting ones. That's the business sweet spot. You want to have systems around that. That's one of the key systems. Another key system is a system for ensuring that every member of your team exhibits high enthusiasm for their role. That's the how to hire the best system, because everything that I walked you through with identifying the one result that you need, hiring for strengths, and then the other piece around getting team members to exhibit high enthusiasm for their role is you want to have a story. You want to have your story brand, and you want your team members to be the hero in the story of solving the problems for your top clients and customers. And when your team members are the
That's
heroes,
awesome.
They're going to be enthusiastic because they are making an impact. There's a reason they're showing up for work now. They're not just doing the things. They're showing up for work with a reason. And then the fourth piece is ongoing team development activities. And it's if you pay attention to all of that, it's all about the people. It's all about having the right people as clients and customers and the right people on your team and then growing down
It's
on your
so
team.
fascinating, Dr. Sabrina. I love it. It's you're articulating, and I'm going back to the first part of the interview when you're like, if you were to ask me, I don't know, these are just awesome people. You actually pulled out of people, because I'm thinking about there was I was in my EO forum a few months ago, and we were talking about employee reviews. And I don't know, we had almost 100 employees, and we did our annual reviews, but I just knew everybody. And I knew what everybody wanted. I knew who was to talk to people. But I was the friend guy, so I was always managing friends. So I was doing what you're talking about, but you're putting systems into place to measure it instead of, because the anxiety of not knowing who's at risk and are they not happy right now with the job or their family or whatever the hell it is, because I can't fix it. But then you're then tying that person to I never did that at all, but you tie it to then the outcome of the client or their job too as the hero. That's super fascinating.
Yes. And, when you have team members who love coming to work and they get to work with really great clients and customers, that's where you become a choice as the business owner, because you're putting systems in place that no longer all has to depend on you. You have people that you can rely on and count on, and you get to decide, what role do I want to be in this business, if any role, because it's no longer dependent on you. And that's where you and I are, so aligned, because the services that you offer through Arcona really put people at choice to figure out, okay, if this is the outcome that I want, if this is what I want to do with my business, what levers, what things do I need to be addressing? Yes. What do I need to be addressing? So when people go through the Tap the Potential solution, they're able to take a 4-week vacation, because the business doesn't need them to be there. And then they come back from that 4-week vacation and they're like, the business doesn't need me. I'm at choice. I can do things very differently than what I've been doing. And so it's that what's next for me and what's next for this business question that starts to circle. And so we have business owners who are very well prepared for exit planning at that point because they have a business that is not dependent on the owner. So there's real value in that business.
Mm-hmm.
And for the business owners who are listening, if you ever want to exit your business and retire at some point, you need to recognize that there's so many business owners who are approaching retirement over the next 5-10 years. Like the market for small business on sale is going to be flooded.
I know.
So anything that you do now to differentiate your business, to make it more valuable, is absolutely critical, and it's going to serve you in the future.
And like you and I have talked about on your show, it's like when someone calls and says, I want out, no one says out of the dividends that I'm getting without working.
Right.
So like all the things that you're talking about, even if like what it brings you choices, you can work from the beach or whatever. You know what's super fascinating, and this just became clear to me, Dr. Sabrina, is that I think, you know, when you and I have talked about the size clients that we're working with, you're helping people kind of get over that first to second stage. And like I've always said, and I actually completely am changing how I'm thinking based on talking to you, is because like I've always said there's like this certain order of things to get to where you want. Get your financials put together the right way, get evaluation so you're saying, here's where I'm at, here's the equity value that I want in a point in time. Then you have a strategic plan that gets you there the right way. Mm-hmm. And then you're saying, okay, well, then I have to hire the people and tie the KPIs to the financials and the strategic plan. So the people are like kind of third, because you have to, like, our whole thing is like, you have to understand what ground you're sitting on first. Mm-hmm. But that's the assumption that there's enough infrastructure to do the financial work first, to do the strategic plan, and then identify the people. Where what you've done have clearly articulated most of the ways that these people are stuck in these jobs. It could be millions of dollars in revenue. They're finally making 150 grand, and they're going, well, if I hire that person, I have no more money for my own paycheck. And I've always said, I don't know how to get people out of that unless you get your financials in a way that you maybe take out a line of credit for a couple $100 grand and then hope that the 6 months of the, 15 grand a month pays out. But you've actually just completely on this, like, depending on the size, I think what you're talking about first has to happen.
Absolutely. And I will say that we have a lot of clients that come to us that tap the potential and their financials are nowhere near in order. I mean, that's a very common experience, no matter what revenue size. You could be $3 million
I agree with
in
that,
revenue,
no
and the financials are a disaster. And it could be that you have a bookkeeper that started with you from way back when, and they've just stayed with you as the business has grown, and they don't have any formal training in bookkeeping. And so who knows how those finances got to be a disaster, but they're typically a disaster. And one of the things that I really have come to appreciate about Profit First is you start to see that there's supposed to be profit, which is the dividends. That's the entrepreneurial risk that you bear, and that's your investment that should be paying off to you. So that you get paid through profit, but you also get paid as an owner who works in the business, like an employee. And so it's automatically set up that you have these two revenue streams coming into your personal household income. And so it gets you realizing you are an investor. When you're looking at your profitability, you are an investor. And if you're not profitable, something's not right. And the majority of businesses are paycheck to paycheck, and because operating expenses are so high. But a lot of that is because there's no sweet spot in the business. So if you get that sweet spot, then you start getting that momentum, and you really do create the margin. But the other piece about hiring is you don't want to start with hiring your integrator. You want to start with training wheels, because we all are terrible at hiring at the first time around. The statistics show that we mishire 75% of the time. When we follow traditional,
I'll validate that stat.
So you don't want to mishire that integrator. That's not good.
No,
so start with the little roles at the bottom of the accountability chart that are less expensive, and build your skills with hiring.
I like that. That's really cool.
So the idea is to go, like, using the How to Hire the Best system. It's iterative. You're constantly tweaking, honing, and refining. You're constantly looking at, what did I do that worked this past time that I want to repeat and do more of intentionally. But you're able to move your percentage from 75% mishiring to 75% hiring accurately, which is nice. Just imagine what that does to your profit, because it's 3 times the cost of somebody to replace them typically, or more, and all your time to interview, like how much time you spend interviewing, and you're the most valuable team member. So if you're spending all these hours interviewing, it's just such a waste. And so start with the little roles first.
I like it.
And then build your skill and move up to the higher levels of the chart. Those are less expensive hires, and it allows you to be profitable. And meanwhile, more and more is coming off your plate.
So I want to go to this story that you had in your book, or as an example or comment, I don't know, but it was about not wanting to grovel to the A player, or however, when you finally see someone, because I was like, yep, I've done that. So why don't you describe to the audience what I mean by that?
So when you're in this place of desperation, so the best time to start hiring is when you don't need to hire. At the point where you start to make steady, consistent sales is when you really want to look at starting to think about building your hire the best system into your business. But most of us put off hiring until we're absolutely desperate. And so we put together a job ad and we throw it out there, and somebody comes across our radar and we are desperate and we're interviewing them, and it comes through in how we interview. They're going to be like, oh, they want me really bad here. And they're going to negotiate hard, and they're going to, ask for this high wage or high salary and all these benefits. And they're going to sense from you that you want them really bad, and you bring them on, and now they have you over a barrel because
so
they're like, I'm the princess over here, and I'm going to get all the good stuff.
Yeah, Dr. Sabrina, I don't want to do that project. It's like,
it doesn't work for me to, with my calendar to do that. And so you always want to stay in your lane when you're hiring, and remember that the opportunity for the right person to work for you is the opportunity you're giving them is going to be an answer to their prayers. And I don't mean this in a conceited way at all. What I'm getting at is when you've done your work to create a great place to work for the A players you want to attract to the team, you're creating a right fit for them.
Yeah, it's a sports team.
They're
right?
going to be so happy. Yeah. They're going to be like, I can't believe I found this job. This is so cool. I'm so happy to be here. And that's what you want.
Amen to that. What do you do with the people? So let's say the system is going, you're advertising, you got videos on your website about you and your team, and all the brand perception is the company of choice, employer of choice that you're talking about. What happens if the A player comes? How do you nurture the bottom of the funnel, the people that might want to work with you now, but it's not the right time for your company, especially if you don't need the person? Does that make sense? Does the question make sense?
There's lots of ways to do it. Connect with them on social. And I really recommend that you have somebody on your team that supports your recruiting efforts. It can't just be you, the business owner, because you don't have time for that.
But what if sorry to interrupt, but what if they're ready? So
what if they're ready and you're not?
Yeah. If I'm the audience going, well, Dr. Sabrina, I know I'm going to need these 3 positions over the next 6 to 12 months if I hit my revenue goals and hit my profit goals.
Yes.
But I don't want to find the person because I'm scared I'd find the person and they want the job now.
You find them and you just don't have the job now. I mean, you have to be super clear in your head. This job does not exist because I have to hit these revenue targets to be able to afford to bring this person on. And then I've been straight up with people we need to be at this level and we're not there yet. And when we are, I think you're going to be a great fit. So let's stay in touch. And then you just stay in touch with them. They may or may not be ready when you call. They may have found another opportunity that's better, and great for them, but you still stay in touch with them because you never know when you're going to need them in the future. But they can also connect you with other A players. So there's never a dead end. There's never, a lost opportunity I should have snatched them up when I had them. I remember years ago coaching a business owner in Wyoming, and it was during a boom period of time. And I mean, it was so hard to find employees, and he found somebody, and it was a high level position, high salary. He said, but we're not ready yet, but I think I need to bring him on. I feel like if I lose him, I'll never find another one. And he brought him on. And it was 3 years of a lack of profitability. And it took 3 years to get back to profitability from that decision. I mean, think about the sleepless nights for that business owner. It's never worth it.
Yep. I hope one of my clients is listening into that comment. Super helpful. And so I'm thinking about watching my wife's interactions with employers, and a lot of them over the course of, it was close to 18 months and I might be getting too tactical for the recruiting stuff, and you can just let me know because I want to continue to go back to when people are in the organization too. But if I'm if I'm posting, if I'm the employer and I'm putting out all these, all this stuff is out there and there's an ad potentially, and I don't know if there is one specific ad, but are you posting salaries and stuff. Like there's this whole thing about salaries. I could not freaking believe how many postings have no salaries. I'm like, that'd be like having Zillow with no house prices. I'm like, I don't understand.
You
really
need to give a range because you want to screen people out, because you don't want to waste your time interviewing somebody and then you're going to make them an offer and they're going to be
how
like,
many A players wouldn't even look at the ad if it's not a range,
right. And
least,
so you
right?
need to be respectful of their time and your time. So that's a way of screening out. And you have to be realistic with what you're able to offer. And I have seen business owners recruit A players, and if you can be around the 65th percentile with respect to wage or salary of what you're offering, you're in a good place. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to have the highest. And I recommend that you don't, because that gives you room to grow that individual in your company, and they can move up after they prove themselves. They need to prove themselves in your company to earn the higher wages or salaries.
And I noticed from watching my wife, I keep bringing that up because it's the only time I've been in the same household of someone that's searching, right? Because I've never searched for a job. And so I'm not the person to be asking for this, but I watched her absolutely willing, as she was talking to employers, willing to keep the conversations going. Because she hates networking, but she's like, well, in this particular situation, it made sense because the mandates were clear. So like, she's also now got this Rolodex from a year ago that she's got of people to talk to. Can I go? I want to flip to, they're in the business. Like, what is like management of A players?
Yes.
Things that work, things that don't work.
Well, I think the biggest thing that you have to remember is when you bring on an A player, you need to buckle your seatbelt because they're going to go fast, and you need to be prepared to onboard them and train them. Don't drag your seats. You need to be organized with your onboarding and training. And, they want to move and they want to get things done, and you want to allow them to have these tangible markers of progress that they see, like, this is what I'm working towards. And A players like to overachieve. So they're going to want to hit that marker faster than you're ready for them to hit it. So you got to be ready with the next thing. But because they overachieve, you also have to continually talk with them about their workload and making sure that they don't have more and more being added to their plates. They have to learn to manage their workload. You have to have ongoing conversations about what your strengths are. And I encourage team members from the get-go, there's going to be things about this role that you love. There's going to be things you don't love. I always want to know what you love and what you don't love, because we're going to work to get you away from what you don't love and move you more into what you love. And so we start talking about career paths within the company during the interview process, and we continue that conversation. So they always have a next step and a next place to go. You don't ever want an A player looking at your accountability chart and seeing, oh, I'm capped. This is as far as I can go. There's no other opportunity here, because they're not going to stay. They want to grow and advance. The other question I get asked a lot about A players is it difficult to work with them or manage them? Are they the prima donnas? And no, they're not. They're not an A player if they're a prima donna. A players are great communicators, and they're collaborators. They want to be a part of a team and make things work together as a team. Somebody who comes to the team and it's all about them won't last, because other team members will be like, I don't want to deal with that. That's not okay.
I really love that clarity in that description, because I'm thinking, I got a gentleman that joined our team recently, and he is without question an A player, like A plus, like everything that I'm like, hey, there's an idea. And then boom, next day it's like better than I ever, like, oh, what the hell, man? That's crazy. You know what's interesting, but just to pull specifically a couple of his comments is, I want to do this. And it's like taking on these projects to watch them come to life is what brings him joy.
Yes.
And loves collaborating. If there's no collaboration, he's not enjoying that. And if the speed is not there, he said, well, if we can't do this and this, it's just not that interesting to me. And by the way, just a huge caveat, he accepted a significantly less job, a significantly less pay to work with us than some big, huge companies that he was offered. And because he's like, well, they wouldn't let me do these interesting projects. And like it was literally just that obvious to him. So it's just super fascinating watching what you're saying. Is it's really just kind of setting them in the direction. This kind of goes into the management. What are your thoughts on outcome KPI based versus like how detailed of like the projects
You absolutely have to have clear outcomes. And I'm such an advocate for results-oriented workplaces because it gives A players the freedom for how they do whatever they're going to do and the results they're going to deliver. But you absolutely have to have that. And the other thing is that every time we're looking at what can we take off someone's plate because it's not a good fit for them, we're creating opportunities for someone else in the company to advance. And so if you have a strong hiring system to begin with, you're never worried about continually creating open seats as people advance in the company because you have a pipeline of people that want to come in to the company. So it all works together.
I know we're not going to dive into this right now, but where my head really wants to go next, and maybe there's a part two of this is, so like we're kind of talking in general across different roles of A players. When I think about like getting that profit and that to get above that hurdle to then start hiring a lot of these A players, sales is, you know, utmost importance. The amount of challenges people have managing, hiring, attracting sales or marketing people that are responsible for revenue growth. Cause that's the first, I mean, that's got to keep going upwards. And so you bottle up everything you just talked about. Now you have to have a salesperson who could be a wild card. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like I said, it could probably be a whole nother episode.
It's hire an A player for a salesperson. So they have to be collaborative because it's not one salesperson that's going to get you where you want to go. It'll be a team of salespeople, and salespeople are notorious for competitive, like elbow bumping, and and that's not going to work because there's enough for everyone to go around. And so when you are looking at sales, you want to be hiring someone who has an eye to taking care of your best clients and customers. So not overselling. And because the overselling is going to ruin those relationships. And so it has to be about selling just the right thing at just the right time when someone needs it. So it's about bringing in your immutable laws. And the other thing, the best place to look for salespeople for your company is pay attention who's selling to you and how are they doing it? Because they're salespeople.
That's awesome. That's awesome. This has been so fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we haven't covered because I know we can go in a lot of different directions. But I'm going to go back to a comment I made earlier. Like people talk about culture, people talk about managing people. And like you've kind of weaved everything together. And I mean, it's the most impactful thing. Everything you're talking about, minus the strategic plan and the financials, like those are just like three legs of the stool. It's like the people have to do the work and we're all humans. And it's just, you've made it very clear, which I very much enjoy and respect.
I appreciate that. That's my intent is you don't have to have a PhD in psychology to be able to do this. You just need to know the simple things that work. And that's what I'm trying to convey. Like, here are the simple things. Go do them. They'll work. I promise.
Trust me.
Yeah.
So you have been mentioning a bunch of resources. You've talked about your program. You've talked about your book. You've talked about the assessment. So what is the best place to find you? What should people go look for?
So our website is tapthepotential.com. The books, How to Hire the Best and 4-Week Vacation, are available on Amazon. One of the cool places to start with us is to take the Better Business, Better Life assessment and really check in with yourself and see how you're doing, what your level of burnout is, and get an assessment of the health of your business systems. And I have created an educational video series that accompanies the assessment so that when you take the assessment, it's an educational process. Like you're going to learn about your business and you're going to learn about what I call those $10,000 an hour activities, where to focus your attention for the greatest impact in your business. So you can take that assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. And then the other really cool resource that's very popular is our How to Make Your Time Worth $10,000 an Hour chart that lists the chart of $10,000 an hour activities. You can get that at tapthepotential.com/10K.
I love it. And I like you and I are going to continue these conversations because I can totally see integrating some of your stuff, like that one assessment, into our first principle of your drivers. Like, what are you doing and why? And what is your relationship with the business? I think some of the stuff you are working on and talking about is the most important, because we can build a plan towards anything, but you got to figure out what you want. What's your relationship? Are you having fun? Do you enjoy what you're doing? And so I have very much enjoyed our conversations. And then there's one last question I have, and I don't know if you've listened to the show. So like I like to hear what people's definition of intentional is, because it's the show, and I've now got like over 100 definitions that have really given me some interesting insights. So I'm curious, Dr. Sabrina, what is your definition of intentional?
So it's real simple. It's being clear on what I want and aligning all of my actions and choices and moving in the direction of what I want and what's important to me.
Love it. Yeah. It's a great way to end it. Dr. Sabrina, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been an honor.